Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Broadbent. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is the first of ZuBlu's webinars that we're starting. We're aiming to be doing a lot of these in the future, giving you guys all insights into the destinations we love and ultimately help you book the best scuba diving holidays possible. But this evening, we're going to be focusing on the Maldives. So my aim today is to give you a little bit of overview about the Maldives, about traveling within the Maldives, and then ultimately giving you a few more insights into the underwater world of the Maldives and sort of where you can be getting the best experiences. I'll finish up with a sort of overview about the various options for booking in the Maldives and how you could either sort of stay on local islands, resorts, liveaboards, and so on. That should all probably take about 35 minutes or so. And then I will stay on after the webinar to answer any questions, and I'll stay here as long as is helpful for you guys if you have lots of questions to ask. Great. So about the Maldives, I'm sure as many of you are aware, it is located in the sort of Indian Ocean, just off the south sort of western tip of India. It is surprisingly accessible. So for sort of those over Asia side, there are direct flights from places like Singapore, Kuala Lumpur. If you're coming more from sort of Europe, there are lots of direct flights from major cities there. And there's a lot of connecting routes through the kind of big cities in the Middle East. So those coming from further afield from the US, you can sort of connect through Europe or through the Middle East very easily. The Maldives is a sort of very long country, and it is made up of 26 natural atolls that are rings of islands, and there are a total of nearly 1,200 separate coral islands in the Maldives. So a lot of choice, a lot of challenges in choosing the best place to go. So hopefully today I'm going to be able to help with that. In terms of the Maldives more culturally, the predominant religion is Muslim, which is important about the local islands later. The main currency there is Maldivian rupiah, but US dollar is kind of accepted everywhere. Although if you're on a local island and give US dollars, you may get your change back in Maldivian rupiah. Currently, there is really only one main international airport to get into the Maldives, and that is Malé or Valana International Airport. Once you arrive from in there, you are then able to sort of head off internally to join, head over to resorts or join a liveaboard and so on. It looks like there might be a new route opening up to the deep south of the Maldives, which will make life a lot easier for those wanting to go experience the tiger sharks down there. So when at ZuBlu how we view the Maldives, we divide it up into three main areas. And that's predominantly down to the internal travel requirements of getting to those destinations within the Maldives. So up in the north, there are the very famous atolls of Bar, which is great for manta rays, whale sharks, Ra as well, which is also lovely reefs, great for mantas, and then Laviani, kind of on the eastern side. To get to the north, just because it's a little bit further away from the international airport, you always have to take a domestic flight or seaplane. So there'll always be that extra leg internally. The central area, we look at it as a central area because pretty much all of it's accessible by speedboat from the main international airport. So it sort of makes your internal travel when you arrive a little bit easier. It is one of the most established diving areas. There are a lot of resorts, a lot of options there. Some of the more luxury resorts, they do offer a seaplane route from Malé straight to the resort just to speed things up for you. And then heading towards the deep south, this is kind of one of the more unestablished areas. There are very quiet, remote atolls with very few resorts. However, the big destination that's getting a lot of interest over recent years is Formula. So that's right down in the deep south. There is only a local island there, but it's fantastic for pelagics, especially tiger sharks, which are pretty much guaranteed to see every day. Because it's so far south, it's only domestic flights, not seaplanes. So with regards to atolls, they are these kind of ring shapes of coral reefs. And as I said, there are 26 of them. From a travel perspective and how at ZuBlu we like to consider things when we're helping you plan, there's a few key things to think about with the islands on the outer edges of the atoll and those on the interior. So those on the outer edge are acting as barrier reefs. So they're going to get hit by waves. The coral reefs aren't as good there, and there's sort of limited snorkeling opportunities directly from those resorts. Whereas the inner islands are a bit more sheltered and protected, and they're normally encircled by a coral reef. So they're great, have great house reefs and great for snorkeling. So depending on your wishes, knowing which islands are kind of good on the interior or those on the exterior is important to consider. As an example, the beautiful Ansanga Ihuru, which is located in North Mali Atoll, you can see it's completely surrounded by a ring of coral reef, whereas Holiday in Kanduma, which is more of an outer edge island, you can see on the sort of top right the waves coming in over the barrier reef. There's no snorkel opportunity there. Internally, you get these lovely lagoons, but not great for coral, but they are fantastic for other activities like sort of kite surfing, windsurfing, and so on. So just very quickly about the internal travel, speedboats, very simple. They're normally sort of just used for the central atoll areas for getting around. You have the very beautiful donnies with the lovely bow on them. These traditional Maldivian boats are used either as sort of public ferry services, but also a lot of resorts use them for running their activities, be it diving, snorkel tours, dolphin cruises, and so on. Donnies also generally accompany the liveaboards and act as a dive boat. So all the equipment's kept on the donny, and you go off to the dive sites on the donny and then return to the liveaboard where your accommodation is, dining, where you can chill out in the evenings and so on. The seaplanes are used more for the kind of short distance hops, sort of getting to the southern areas of the northern atolls or the northern areas of the southern atolls. The only downside with the seaplanes is they can't fly at night. So we can help with your travel logistics and planning to make sure that everything aligns accordingly. Seaplanes are actually a great way to see the Maldives from the air. And because they're low flying, you get to see all the natural beauty of the atolls and the lagoons and everything. And then the domestic flights, not so exciting. They are traditional sort of aeroplanes. They're just used for the kind of slightly longer distance internal flights that are needed. So getting to the more exciting part, and what we're all particularly excited about at ZuBlu is the underwater side of the Maldives. One of the big things to consider with the Maldives is the main two seasons. We have a dry northeast monsoon, which sort of runs around January to April. Because the winds are coming from the east, generally it's the better visibility is on the eastern side of each of the atolls. But because all the winds and the waves are sort of pushing plankton and everything across to the atolls from east to west, the manta rays and whale sharks generally move to the western side of the atoll because they're going to follow the plankton which they feed on. So this monsoon is known locally as Uruvai. Generally, it's considered a kind of clear skies, calm winds, kind of very good time of year to visit. The other monsoon, the wet southwest monsoon, so everything coming up from the southwest, everything reverses. So the visibility is generally a little bit better on the western side, but the plankton's pushed to the eastern side, and that's where the manta rays and the whale sharks go. It is generally considered a more likely period for kind of higher winds and sort of choppier waves and maybe a bit more rain. However, it is the Maldives. It is generally good year round. It is very unlikely that you get any sustained bad weather. You'd be very unfortunate to get any sustained bad weather for more than a couple of days. But depending on the time of year you're looking to travel, you can consider going north or south, and there are variations and subtleties. So, feel free to reach out to the team at ZuBlu, and we'll be able to give you those kind of extra details. When it comes to the diving, I thought it'd be nice just to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of different dive experiences you can have, the different dive sites. There's a huge amount of variety there. So I've made a little diagram. On the right-hand side is the sort of outer edge of the atoll where the wall will drop off to hundreds of meters. The outside of the atoll is great for wall diving. You get a lot of like little terraces, caves, swim-throughs. Great fun to see big stuff cruising past or going, on the outside of the atoll. As you get up to the shallower reef, you get the barrier reef that I've been mentioning about. So this is called the Futaru or Futaru. There's no way to snorkel on that. It's getting hit by waves, so not somewhere you want to be. As you head over the sort of outer edge of the atoll, over the islands, you then head into the lagoons in the interior. And then you get sort of two types of reef that are very shallow. One is called a faru, and that is generally a reef that is exposed at low tide. You then have a giri, which is a shallow reef that doesn't get exposed at low tide. And then heading a little bit deeper to the really exciting places are the tilas. So these are sort of underwater seamounts, generally a little bit deeper in terms of where the top of the reef is, more like 10, 15 meters. But these act as great hubs for marine life. They have, they bring all of the sort of reef sharks together. Manta rays use them as cleaning stations. So tilas are particularly exciting spots to be heading to. And just to give a quick example of the variety you can get in a single area, I'm not saying South Mali Atoll is the best place to go. There are lots of them, but just within South Mali in a very small area, you can have Coco Corner, which is a great wall dive that turns into a kind of drift dive in the channel. You've got the very famous Kanduma Tila, which is a long stretch of underwater reef that is good diving it on an out current and an in. Lots of grey reef sharks, white tips, turtles, eagle rays. On the interior, you'll get one of the giris I mentioned, more of a shallow reef. That's actually used as a great manta ray cleaning station. And then sort of 4 and 5, there are other great sort of corner wall dives. So within a very small area, you will get a huge variety of diving experiences. So when I think about the underwater world of the Maldives, I kind of look at it in the various sort of habitats that are on offer. In terms of the lagoons, these are the kind of shallow areas around the islands. They're great nurseries for small fish. You get sort of occasional sort of small patches of coral. You get beautiful visibility, which is lovely for snorkeling. Lots of little critters in the sand if you keep an eye out, such as this little pipefish. If you're on an island that happens to have a sort of nesting turtle site or a turtle sanctuary, there's a chance for you to see baby turtles. There are always lots of rays within the lagoons as well, such as this pink whiptail ray. And a lot of resorts now are doing sort of coral restoration programs. So you can sort of enjoy snorkeling within a lagoon and sort of see the work that they're going through from a conservation perspective. This is Ansana Ihiru that I mentioned earlier. They even have this enormous electrified artificial structure on their house reef that they are growing coral on as well. That's very impressive to go dive and snorkel over. And then when it comes to the reefs, I think one of the most iconic fish in the Maldives is these orange anthias. They are there in their millions, if not more, and they just bring enormous color to the reefs when you're diving there. And color is really the name of the game in the Maldives. You've got all the classics, the beautiful anemone fish. You've got schools of powder blue surgeons, snappers. huge, and then you've sort of got the iconic oriental sweet lips as well, lots of schools of those, blue line snapper, and so on. So a huge number of different schooling reef fish to be swimming in and out of. And then you get the kind of big iconic Maldivian species, not unique to the Maldives, but very prominent there, such as the Napoleon wrasse, amazing patterns on its face, and the patterns and beauty continue across all of the fish, such as this little parrotfish's mouth, and into the coral as well. And if you look closely, there are some particularly cute chaps to find amongst the coral as well. And I think sort of images like this sum up the Maldives, in my opinion. Beautiful reef fish, stunning soft coral kind of hanging off the reef, and yeah, just a pleasure to dive. Obviously, lots of turtles as well, and I mentioned the lovely sort of caves and swim-throughs that you can see on the outer edges of the atolls. These kind of beautiful soft coral-laced little places to explore are fantastic. And do keep an eye out for the little soft coral crabs on those as well. And when it comes to the little things, Maldives is actually surprisingly good from a diving perspective. You do see lots of leaf fish, ghost pipefish, lots of nudibranchs as well, flatworms. So all sorts of small things to keep an eye out for, even though a lot of people are very keen about the big stuff. Another key area that Maldives offers a lot of is wrecks. There are plenty of those in almost every atoll, and pretty much every resort will have access to a wreck dive site, or a liveaboard will go visit them. The wrecks act as great little hubs for marine life, and they're also kind of heavily coral encrusted as well, which is always great to explore. There's a particularly famous one in Laviani Atoll, which had its bow sticking out the water. I think that's now collapsed a little bit, but you were able to kind of swim inside it and look up through the structure as the bow poked out the water. So yeah, very beautiful, all the rays of light. But the big stuff and where the action is all on the sort of edges of the atolls, specifically around the channels where you get the most current. So you get a lot of grey reef shark action. You get the big schools of jacks and tuna. White tip sharks kind of will often be hunting, and it's kind of schooling together when they hunt. And then the iconic schools of eagle rays. If you get a chance to see that silhouette as a whole squadron of them fly over the top of you, that's one of the sort of top Maldives dive experiences, in my opinion. And they also kind of just look beautiful as they swim over the sort of bottom of the channels, over the rippled sand, kind of carved by currents. So in terms of the sort of best highlights, in my opinion, in the Maldives, whale sharks are things everyone's very keen to see. At the moment, there's really only one reliable spot year round, and that is in Mamagili in South Ari Atoll. That's generally one of the top diving areas that we recommend for our guests, because it not only offers the chance to see whale sharks, but there's also manta ray cleaning stations and a huge diversity of different dive sites to experience. You can see them year round, but generally sort of earlier in the year, with February being considered the peak. And then the other really top destination that's getting a lot of exposure these days, mainly because it's been showcased on the likes of Nat Geo and in Blue Planet, is Hanifaru Bay up in Bar Atoll. Here there is a little key-shaped reef that on an outcurrent, plankton gets caught in this sort of this key shape. And because all the plankton builds up in there, it attracts, literally hundreds of manta rays to come and feed on them. And they come in and sort of dance around in chains and in tornadoes, feeding and gorging on all this trapped plankton. So an incredible thing to witness. You can only snorkel there just to keep the manta rays a bit more protected. And the season is generally from June to October. with sort of July, August, September really being the peak period. But this is one of the kind of top, Blue Planet experiences to have in the Maldives. So you can see these sort of chains they form together to kind of be most efficient at sort of guzzling all the plankton up. And you can also see some very kind of rare behavior, such as the manta ray on the right, that's sort of bottom feeding or skimming along the sand, hoovering up plankton that way as well. And if you get very lucky at Hanifaru Bay, sometimes whale sharks come along and join the feast, and they'll just sit there like 10-meter long puppies in the water, just gorging on the plankton at the surface, and that's also awesome if you get that lucky. I mentioned earlier, one of the other very exciting places is now Formula, right in the deep south. Here it is a very reliable place year round to get tiger shark encounters. Plus there's a lot of pelagics there in terms of thresher sharks, hammerhead schools as well. It is a year-round destination, but the only island option there is a local island. So you can sort of stay on guest houses and then go dive on the dive sites around the island. However, the best season is generally considered January to March, and liveaboards will go down and do a southern route at that time of year. So there is a liveaboard option, but there are no luxury resort options down south that can kind of get to Formula easily and kind of give you the tiger shark experiences. And then I mentioned the channel dives. Here on these channel dives year round, pretty much everywhere you're going to get enormous schools of kind of grey reef sharks and baby reef sharks as well. So kind of up, in their hundreds, which is fantastic. Cool. And then also scattered around the Maldives are the various sort of manta ray cleaning stations. Again, they're kind of, the options are there year round, but it very much depends on the monsoon, where the plankton's being pushed. Manta rays generally sort of live in particular areas at a certain time of year. So again, if you are looking to plan anything, do reach out to us, and either me or my team will be able to help with just making sure we're kind of recommending the right areas for you at the time of year you're looking to travel. Another little iconic experience is a night dive that is offered on some of the liveaboard trips in the central atolls. There is a little place called Fesdu Lagoon, where at night, if you sort of put torches down on the bottom, that attracts plankton, and then manta rays come in and sort of feed on the plankton in the moonlight, or not in the torchlight. And you just sit on the sand and sort of watch the ballet happen around you, which is great. And there are some other really fantastic night dives with lots of rays and sharks as well. Alimata in Varvio Atoll is particularly famous. You get lots of nurse sharks, and the occasional black tip will come up and give you a buzz as well. And then finally, operators are getting a little bit better at finding these experiences. Whale sharks now are at certain locations are kind of coming in either to the moonlight or boat light when plankton is drawn to it, and you get the chance to sort of at night just snorkel off either the edge of a donny or the edge of your liveaboard as whale sharks come and just feed in the darkness. But obviously you get a beautiful with all the light and all the patterns on the whale sharks as well. So in terms of holiday options and the different ways that you can experience the Maldives, I'll just run through the variety of them now. So yeah, I'll dive into the various holiday options. So the most affordable option is staying on in the local islands, and this has now been opened for tourism since 2011. Previously, tourists weren't allowed to stay on the local islands, but they've opened it up for tourism. And what's happened is, a huge number of guest houses have opened up. funnily enough, a lot of these guest houses have been set up by members of staff that used to work at kind of luxury 5-star resorts. So they brought a lot of their sort of learning and attention to detail to their guest houses. So sometimes the term guest house can be a little bit unfair. I actually know a lot of our guest house partners. We know the manager from when I worked with them at Four Seasons or so on. The great thing about local islands is they give you, a bit more of a Maldivian cultural experience and get to kind of interact a lot more with Maldivians, which is always great fun. They have a huge passion for life and for the oceans, which is great. The accommodation is more affordable. The cost of diving is more affordable. The only potential challenge is, although you do get sort of unlimited reef access, it very much depends on the location of that island. If it's a sort of outer edge islands, on the edges of the atolls I've mentioned, there might not be that much access. When you stay on an island as well, you're limited in the catchment area of dive sites that you can visit. Generally, boats are not really going to travel more than an hour and a half to get to a dive site. So you are going to be slightly limited in comparison to a liveaboard. And then the other kind of big considerations is the cultural one. As the Maldives is a Muslim country, they do not allow alcohol on local islands. So there's no sort of post-dive beer or sunset cocktail to be had. Also, it's very important to be considerate of the religion and sort of keep yourself fairly covered in sarongs when you are walking around the island. But they are aware that people want to be able to come and tan and sunbathe. So they generally set up particular areas on each island they call bikini beaches, where tourists are free to sort of relax and sunbathe more freely. But when walking around within the interior of the islands, it's always good to sort of be covered up and considerate. And then in terms of price point, guest houses normally start from about range from about $80 to $150 per night. The next level up is obviously the luxury resort islands that the Maldives is famous for. It goes from lovely and comfortable all the way up to extreme ultimate luxury. Obviously, there's the famous sort of overwater villas that are really iconic and people love to book at. And then resorts just make life easy with all-inclusive meal plans. And a lot of them, they've got all the additional facilities such as spa, water sports, gym, and so on. These are great for kids and families. Obviously, you're a little bit free to be running around in board shorts and bikinis all the time, not being on a local island. And then you'll have unlimited house reef access throughout. Again, as you are on an island, you're going to have that limited dive site catchment area because the boats can only go so far. And then the final downside of the resort islands, which is particularly my one, is they're very, very bad at being transparent about their pricing. If you are kind of looking on their websites directly or even via the likes of booking.com, they often hide very secretly the additional costs of the seaplane transfers or the domestic flight transfers to get to them. And suddenly you, on arrival at the resort, will be surprised by a 500 plus bill per person to be taking the seaplane and so on. So that's a real bugbear for me. At ZuBlu, we try and make sure we're extremely transparent about our pricing and make sure everything is included and you're not going to get any shocks when you do arrive at your resort. So something to be very aware of. In terms of the pricing, obviously it ranges dramatically from more affordable options at around $200 per night all the way up to the 25,000 plus per night in the sort of super 6-7 star luxury resorts. For divers, in my opinion, liveaboards are the best option. The liveaboards throughout the year will be running a variety of itineraries that are the best itinerary to do at that time of year. So you're always going to get a great array of diving. You're going to be traveling around a number of atolls and visiting the best dive sites in each atoll. So you don't have any limitation in terms of that catchment. Within the price, it will always have your accommodation in your cabin included, meals, the diving as well. So when you start comparing a liveaboard to a resort island and adding things up at the resort island, liveaboards are always great value in my opinion. Obviously other guests are on the boat and they're generally all divers as well. So there's a really nice social atmosphere. The potential downsides, you don't get as much beach time or kind of experiences of island life. Some liveaboards will sort of moor up near an island for the afternoon and allow you to kind of go on and sunbathe if you decide to skip the afternoon dives. But generally you don't get that much beach time access. There also aren't that many luxury options. We've got a couple that are fantastic, but a lot of the liveaboards are very much focused on just providing good comfort and giving you excellent diving, which is probably the right way to go about it. And then they're not really suitable for children or families. There's not much for children to do on boats, and generally it's sort of better to be looking at resort options if you do have a young family that you're traveling with. And then price-wise, it's ranging from 1,200 per week up to 5,000 for the more luxury options. A couple of other quick considerations about how you can kind of experience the Maldives. There are a number of charter yachts that we partner with. They're very similar to liveaboards, but you hire them out sort of privately as a group. The great thing about this is it can be highly personalized and customized to your wishes. So great for families and children as well. So if some of the family want to go off diving, they can go do that. Others can go off snorkeling. If you want to have a day just relaxing near an island with a great beach, you can do that. So it's all very, very personalized. The only potential downside is the price can be a little bit higher, but once you consider the group as a whole on a per person basis, it's not necessarily too bad. And last but not least are what we call our eco ventures. So we work with a number of conservation organizations that offer sort of research, sort of experiential trips or impact focused trips where you can go along, join a conservation organization and supporting them in doing their work. A lot of that is particularly focused around whale sharks and manta rays. These are great things to do and things we love to promote. Price wise, it can sort of vary around sort of $2,000 per trip. But, reach out to us if you're interested to learn more about those. Generally, I think it's a very nice thing to do is kind of go do a week of that and then maybe combine that with, a week at a resort and have a bit more of a relaxing luxury time as well. But yeah, we're really proud of the organizations we work with and are keen to kind of keep promoting them. Great. So in terms of next steps, in the Livestorm app, there's kind of a three dots that you might be able to see. We've put a number of handouts in there for you, specifically the ZuBlu Maldives guide. We've also got the shark guide that we've made. So a little bit more about kind of how ZuBlu can help. Hopefully you can agree we have pretty good destination knowledge and know our destinations inside out. We also have some really fantastic special offers, especially with our liveaboards and resorts, and we're generally actually cheaper than direct or via the likes of booking.com. As I mentioned, we're very keen to be fully transparent on price, so there's no surprises for you ever.